Lebanese Ether, Freestyle Drive. What's going on, everybody? How you doing, Zoom world? I'm adapting to this whole new Zoom technology. I had to do it because I got amazing artists with me from Lebanon, and been wanting to have them on the show, but a physical location sometimes makes that impossible. So finally got him on the Zoom. My brother Chyno with the new album Mamluk. What's going on, my brother?
What up, my man? My man, Lebanese Ether. It's been a minute. We've been trying to do this for a minute, even like we've been in touch for a long time, and we've been wanting to do like some talk, but life, I guess.
No doubt, man. This brother Chyno, I just want to say, you've been doing amazing things in the whole Middle East, Lebanon, the whole West Asia, holding it down, especially Lebanon. And, you've elevated the hip hop scene, in our countries, which is amazing. And I'm so happy that you have this new record out right now called Mamluk. But before we get into the whole new project, let's get into the origins of Chyno. I know you are half Syrian, half Filipino. Is that the case?
That's the truth. I was born in Manila, Metro Manila. And then from there, I moved to Saudi Arabia. My dad was working in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
He met my mom in the Philippines, and then we moved to Saudi for a bit where he was working. And then we moved to Damascus. That's where I lived right before I came to Beirut. And then when I moved to Beirut, I moved alone. And I didn't know when I moved here back in like early 2000s, I didn't know this was going to be home base for me for such a long time. It was supposed to be the college stint. I came here to LAU to study banking and finance, and here we are. And and an economical crisis, screaming "fuck banks" and my raps.
Amazing story, man. Exactly. It's like everything that's wrong with capitalism, you could argue, is happening in Lebanon right now, if not internationally, but specifically since you're based out there. Do you mind if I ask how your family met? You said your father was in the Philippines.
Yeah, man. My dad went to the Philippines in the early '80s. To do business. Saudi Arabia was on the come up. He was a young buck. He kind of just left Syria. Obviously, your constraints as a business person back then, in the '70s or late '70s, early '80s, the constraint is heavy then, So he went to Saudi Arabia, and then he went off to Philippines to expand his projects, I guess, or trying to get a foothold of what to work with, And he was working in construction. Yeah. And then that's where I met my mom.
Nice. That's excellent, man. So you did, I wasn't sure if you grew up in Syria at all, or you mostly was based in Lebanon for political reasons. When you're saying like when you're saying like the '70s and '80s, you mean due to the Civil War and just war in the region in general, leading to less economic opportunities? Is that what you were referring to?
Yeah, definitely, man. And like how it was in the late '70s in Syria, it's pretty much the same thing. I don't want to go into heavy politics about like what goes on in Damascus. I think we all know what goes on in Damascus. So let's just say they're in a similar boat, where economically you had to search for greener pastures to advance yourself.
So what was it like growing up in Manila and then Damascus and then Beirut? It's like, what was your experiences?
Man, moving from I think the biggest culture shock at the beginning was moving from Manila to Saudi Arabia, so to Jeddah. I was really young, but I was just like a kid. I was like 5'6", but the disparity of the cultural difference between coming from Manila, which was like just simply me being able to walk around as a kid with shorts and just be anywhere all the time, it was just such a different vibe, and then being in but coming to Saudi Arabia also opened different opportunities. Once you're also constrained by being a foreigner, somehow you're also surrounded by foreigners. So a big thing of mine growing up in Saudi Arabia was actually hip hop, because I never really fit in any culture in Saudi Arabia. Like I would be telling people, yeah, I'm Syrian, but there wasn't even a lot of Syrians back then in Saudi Arabia. So I was surrounded by Egyptians. I was surrounded by Saudis. I was surrounded also Palestinians, surrounded by a lot of different Arabs, but Syrian wasn't that thing. And because of that, I think I identified when I first heard like hip hop, like Naughty by Nature, 93. I think that 93, 94.
Wow.
That was the first time I heard it.
Nice.
And it was like hip hop hooray, you know? And they were just chilling. I had no friends at that point, man. Like I was still trying to make friends. And I saw hip hop hooray on a TV, and they were just chilling with their like puffy jackets, you know, baggy clothes, and just this kind of music that I just didn't know what the fuck it was really, man. I was like, what is this? Why are they dressed like that? Why is some guy hanging by the basketball ring? I love basketball too. So I was like, why is he, what the fuck is going on here? This is so fucking cool. This is so cool. Like, I just didn't know how to explain it. I remember too, I was like, I didn't even know the word cool. You know, like it was, I was just a like little kid. And I think that got me interested. And only till like years later did I understand that, oh, that was something I was craving, you know, that community vibe that they had, you know, together as African Americans in the neighborhood. Honestly, I didn't even realize they were just African Americans, or like, you know, it didn't hit me back then. It just hit me that's community vibe, and they obviously didn't look like they're part of society. They weren't the integral part of the society that the world or media wanted to show. So I was just like, man, I just want to hang with people like that, you know. And so you could tell it was as soon as I was surrounded.
You could tell it was kind of like an outlet for the youth who were kind of outcast from society, even at the young age. You could tell just from seeing the visuals and listening to the music that, you know, this is something you could vibe with, because it's kind of like, it's not necessarily accepted by mainstream society, you know, at that point, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be a big Michael Jackson fan as a kid, right? And
all of us, right?
But like,
yeah.
You know, like
still
exactly, you know, so to jump 100%, you know. So I grew up with like the gloves and everything. I had the gloves and all that, you know. But when I first saw Hip Hop Hooray, I was like, yo, that's something completely different, man. Like that's nothing my mom knows, you know. This, like Michael Jackson, Prince. My mom used to like, you know, bump that around in the house and be like, yo, this Michael Jackson, that's Prince. And, you know, you kind of like identify with it because of how your parents told you about him. But for me, hip hop was my thing, you know. Like I was telling my mom, like, yo, you see these guys, they're just like saying words really quickly and on a rhythm, you know. Like it was very interesting for me. And I guess that's how I identified with people as the more I moved around, because I didn't really identify culturally with the people. Like even in going to Syria, I'm Syrian, my family's Syrian, but I look different. And because of my parents, like at home, English was the main language, because my mom doesn't speak Arabic, and my pops doesn't speak Tagalog, Filipino Tagalog. So I remember when I was in the Philippines as a kid, my mom would like, you know, talk to me in Tagalog. My friends would talk to me in Tagalog, and my dad, classic era, bro, like get mad jelly, gets so jealous, dude.
Like, what do you guys say? What are you guys saying about me?
He'd be like, he's not speaking Tagalog more than Arabic. Better, you guys speaking English at home. Ain't no Tagalog happening here, you know. Wow. And then at home we had like a little Tagalog band when I was in the Philippines. He was just jealous because he wanted his kid to be more Arabic, you know. Of
course,
and that's acceptable, you know. Like that's acceptable, especially when you're, you know, around the world migrant. You feel like you want your kid to be more attached to your culture.
Definitely.
You know, but unfortunately, you know, he's also a go-getter, and he went out in the world, you know, and went and got it. So while I was away, he was putting me in English schools as well. I was surrounded by foreigners, and especially in Saudi Arabia. And, you know, like what's weird with me is I've never lived in an English speaking country. Like I've never lived in Australia, UK, just in the Middle East. But because when I was in Jeddah, I played baseball with like a lot of the American community.
Baseball or basketball?
Yeah, like I played basketball, but like one of the sports that I for real played, like
I didn't know they had
the Jeddah team, and I would.
Wow.
Yeah, they had like a league in Saudi Arabia, like for, you know, pony league and coach pitch and t-ball and things like that. And a lot of people, and we would even go to Khobar. We would go for tournaments, city nationwide tournaments for baseball that's arranged by the American community, especially post the Gulf War. That shit was rampant, you know.
That's crazy.
And Yeah, so
because you don't think of baseball when you think of the Middle East. It's more like an American sport, Latin America, Caribbean countries.
yeah.
To hear that you was playing baseball in Saudi Arabia is like a mind fuck in a way,
It is, man, and I didn't know it was a mind fuck, because you grow up and you're just going through the motion, you never really reflect, and you have no understanding of that, cultural implication of baseball in Saudi Arabia in the middle of the desert. Like that didn't hit me when I was like 10 or 12, right? But I mean, Philippines, they love baseball too, but nothing like Japan or Central America.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, baseball was a thing, sports was a thing, and hip hop. That's what I identified with at that point.
That's amazing, man. I mean, you were saying like, your father wanted you to learn Arabic. This is an issue that a lot of people in the diaspora, people who leave their homelands and struggle with, or people who intermarry or whatever have you, they have mixed kids, like my case, and I'm struggling with this right now, want my kids to learn Arabic as well. And I'm like, I'm gonna sacrifice, I'm gonna pay money for school if I have to send them to the masjid, I send them to the Catholic school, I send them wherever they have to go to pick up a couple of Arabic words, besides what they learn at their grandparents' house. But it's amazing that like your father had that with you, and like, but now you're not only speaking Arabic, you're rapping in Arabic. You know what I'm saying? And like you were a star in the Arab world in a way, So it's like, it's funny how the full circle came back to this moment.
Yeah, and what's funny is like I still, I feel I have like my, deficiencies in Arabic. Obviously, I'm not as fluent as somebody who like was a kid, speaking Arabic. And not only that, I wasn't stuck with an accent, because when I was in Saudi Arabia, or surrounded by Saudis, surrounded by a lot of Egyptians. And when I came to Beirut, so I remember coming to Beirut, bro, and I was like, living in Syria before that. I remember saying like, I barely understand these people. Their accent is like so.
You were talking about
the twang is so different, man. And so I would come here like, I was in Lebanon. I was like, and when I was in like Syria, my family is from Medan, and Medan, we're like, like that's like, we're heavy with that, so I'm coming over here, and then the accent is like really, I don't know how to explain it, but really fluttery, let's say,
Okay.
It flutters.
Fair.
It's like really fluid like that, it doesn't twang the same as like as in Syria. So I remember having difficulty catching the shows, trying to catch the accent. It took me a while. And honestly, even if I'm out in the streets right now, people would be like, are you Egyptian or are you Jordanian? Because they don't understand. They're like, he speaks Arabic, but not an accent that I understand. But also, he doesn't look like a Lebanese, so he must be Jordanian or,
right now,
Egyptian.
you're having this experience right now, at this moment, or when you?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I feel like listening. Because I feel like listening to your new album, Mamluk. I mean, I hear the Lebanese accent in it. Am I wrong to say that? I mean, I don't know. I feel like you've been there so long. I would think so many people. Do you get this a lot? Where people think you're Lebanese initially too? I mean, I know you have the mixed background and everything, but
I guess it's a mixed scenario. So some people look at me and just don't. It just doesn't process to them that I'm speaking. When they see my face and then see me speak. So the accent, I know I'm speaking Lebanese. I've been here for like 16 years.
No doubt.
It just doesn't process. They're like, you must be Egyptian, just because of how I look. They're like, I don't get it. He's Egyptian. Okay. He's Jordanian, but not Lebanese. But like, I've had so many moments over here where I'm speaking to them in Lebanese and they start saying like, man, them Syrians though, taking our jobs, and shit like that. I'm like,
okay,
whoa. I remember one time I was in a service and this guy comes, we were like 4 people like already in the car, and the service driver starts opening up some topic about Syria, about taking their jobs and they need to resolve this situation. And literally out of the 5 people in the car, 3 of us were Syrians, and we're like, yo, bro, you need to chill with that talk. And I know we proved them right that there's too much Syrians because of the ratio, but like
but at the same time, I mean, we could look at it, there's always all types of ways to look at the same time. He was making money from y'all, right? He was dropping you off somewhere,
Yeah.
service. He was making
Yeah.
money from 3 Syrian, so it's like you always, people always have that one perspective without realizing the contributions that may come from people, leaving war zones or refugees or people even just leaving for economic reasons. It's always that one.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same, like, I think it's the same, like, I mean, honestly, racism, discrimination, and xenophobia has so many similarities from country to country. It's always the fear of the other taking their job, and it's a narrative. It's not a reality, because the economy has been salvaged to a certain extent back then. Like when we had like a little boom back in 2012, and where also when I came back from Barcelona, because I lived in Barcelona after here for a
Okay.
bit. But when I came back in 2014, economy was doing good well, and that was not because there's an influx of Syrians and also an influx of jobs that comes along with dealing with that much Syrians,
I mean, that's, it's like the meme that you see circulating now, since we're speaking about capitalism earlier. It's like the boss or the capitalist with the plate full of cookies. He gave one cookie
Yeah.
to the citizen, let's say, and he said, "Oh, that immigrant's taking your cookie. That immigrant wants your cookie." When he has a whole bowl of
Yeah.
cookies, but that's how they keep the working class divided. If we're not gonna get too political, but that's how they
Exactly.
keep people divided to maintain their power
100%.
and control. And I know
Facts.
you talk about racism a lot in your music. You address it not necessarily blatantly. You may reference certain incidences or things that you've experienced, and I know you have experienced some of that recently with the release of your album. Is that something you've dealt with? You kind of mentioned you kind of grew up dealing with these people misrepresenting where you're from or your background and the language and all this. How was it like overall growing up in Lebanon, since you seem like you spent most of your years, or at least recently, in Lebanon?
Like before, I didn't address it so directly. I would always make fun of it, like I'm the minority in this and you're also trying to fit in. And you know what? Like when I was here for college, before I actually decided to move here, or I had the understanding that this might be the place I'll be living in for a long time, I didn't have the, like I didn't really focus on the problems. I knew it was there. I knew I was feeling it. I knew people looked at me different. I knew people would also, but when I was working on the album Mamluk, the album became Mamluk because of how I was seeing the world. I was Lebanon, Beirut specifically was becoming my home, and and to an unforeseeable future. I wanted to be here. I still, if things are all right and remain okay over here in Beirut, I'd really want to stay here as long as I can. And with that in mind, that's when I started saying, I need to fit in here. I need to understand, let them people understand over here that there is a place for people like me, and we contribute to the society. If we're just gonna localize what I do, me personally, in the hip hop world, then I could be like, I contributed a lot. So I don't want any hate from the hip hop world and the Middle Eastern hip hop world, because I did what I can for this place, but do I experience racism? Yeah, whether that's just because I'm Syrian, whether it's systemic, like especially the past 4 years, that has been an issue for me. Like trying to just now, let's say right now, I'm applying for my residency. They haven't given me residency for 2 months. It's going to be like another month wait until I get it. So I'm pretty much, my paperwork ain't right until they give it to me. So I can't travel until, because it's in limbo. Things like that, and the treatment of Syrians in those offices and those, when they deal with bureaucracy, that on its own is like a different form of racism. In terms of face to face, I've had, especially this year, with the resources dwindling, that has been a lot worse. I've gone to barbers. I've switched already 2 barbers because of like weird ass racist shit. Like when COVID hit.
They make comments.
Yeah, COVID hit. My friend goes to the same barber, and he was like, oh, some Chinese guy comes over here. I kick him out because I think he might have COVID. That's what he told my friend. So I was like, And then
That's
he said,
horrible, man. That's horrible. That's yeah.
And then to make it even seem worse, what he said was like the Chinese guy was trying to show me a paper from health ministry that he doesn't have it, but I was like, I don't care. You're not allowed in. That's what he was telling my friend. So my friend told me, I was like, yeah, I'm never going to this fucking barber again, and go to a second barber. And then he was trying to overcharge me double for a haircut, but it was lockdown, and I was like, you're my neighbor, so I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna pay that. And also because of the economical crisis, I don't know what money is worth anyways, so I was like, all right, cool. Okay. And then he whispers, he's like, and then he thought I was Lebanese after that, and then he's like, why I'm put the price up and stuff? I was like, why? And he's like, because I don't want any Indians or Filipinos or like Africans to come cut their hair here. And I told him, I'm Filipino, right? And then it got really awkward. So like, yeah, there is like instances where, it's straight up in your face. But I have it better than the rest of me. That's the thing, is like, for that to happen to me, where I'm in a place in society right now where I can kind of, go anywhere I want, and also being educated and speaking their language, I should, break that barrier. But if it happens to me, then I can imagine how it's like to friends of mine who live in foster homes because their parents were migrant workers and they died or left them, like how do they deal with it? How, if you're just a regular worker, how do they actually get treated? And I had many conversations with many people about this stuff, that are migrants in Lebanon. And we come to the same consensus all the time.
Since you mentioned the name album Mamluk, why did you title it Mamluk? When I went to college, I took Middle East history, and the Mamluks were like the servants or slave soldiers who went to Egypt or the Middle East, and they kind of rose in the ranks, or they were, even though they were slaves or servants, they were still armed and were trusted by society to an extent. Is that what it's based on? I wasn't sure if that was what you were naming it after.
Yeah, it was definitely, that was the inspiration. I also, when I was in college, yes, I studied, banking, but I took so many Middle Eastern courses, those are the worst. Those courses were the most engaging to me. And for me, the way I thought about it was that these people were taken out of their environment. So when they were colonized by the the Islamic Caliphate, they would be the young kids would be taken as slave soldiers and bring back home to the capital of the caliphate, or distributed around the Middle Eastern peninsula. And then slowly they rose the ranks because they were made to fight. They were slave warriors. And then through centuries, they assimilated to a certain extent that they rose up even in society. And after, I think, Salahuddin Ayyubi and the liberation of Jerusalem from the Crusades, I think their name as a group of people really resonated too, because they became heroes. And through that, they ruled Greater Syria and Egypt. And for me, I felt that migrant communities were also forced in a different way to leave their environment and be forced in maybe somewhat a hostile environment, treated similar to a slave, and not all instances, to some instances. And so this album is just kind of like reflecting on history, saying the possibility of what migrants can do when you are forced to be in somewhere. Like that chip on your shoulder that the Mamluks had to succeed. I just wanted to reiterate it to my community or people like me. And hey, this is not just in the Middle East. I'm like, this is also to Arabs that are going to the West. That's a hostile environment to them. For me, that they're definitely Mamluks as well, or at least would represent that, because they're going to an environment that actually causes trouble in our environment. So they had to go in a hostile environment and assimilate and slowly succeed. So this metaphor is meant for I'm half Syrian, half Filipino. So this metaphor is meant for the both sides that I would like to represent, even though I might not be accepted as that. And if you hear on the song Abid, that's what the Mamluk Sultan, he was having a discussion with his advisor. So the Mamluk Sultan, that was one of his main concern was, like, regardless.
That's the first track of the album, right? Abid?
Yeah.
That's the first track of the album, yeah.
and then when so the intro and outro is a conversation between a Mamluk sultan and his advisor, and he was just so insecure about ruling this place because he was like, regardless of how I do, I'm not going to be accepted as one of them. But now that since I grew up in this world and I've been forced to be in this world, where do I go now? I can't go back to whatever country I'm from. I have to be here and make my throne and try to succeed still.
I mean, it's very interesting that you're saying, you know, it doesn't just apply to, you know, foreign workers in the Middle East, for example. It applies to Middle Easterns themselves who go to the West, like you said. That's why it's frustrating to hear the racism in Lebanon, for example. And then when they go to the West, they may face certain stereotypes and discrimination and racism themselves, but there's still that disconnect. Like, you don't want to be treated this way. So why are you treating people in your home country that way? You know, I'm not sure what it is. If it's just, you know, individualism or.
I'm with you on that. Like that was really the main point of the album, is like connecting those dots, that we are all Mamluks. We all travel. Like if you hear the song Fresh Money, it's about like trying to work, gather money and send it, you know, west through MoneyGram, Western Union to your family. That is our culture, you know.
That's a very Lebanese story. That's a very Lebanese, you know, that's exactly what they're doing, sending money back home to Western Union and getting ripped off. But, you know, you're doing what you got to do, right?
And literally just 2 days ago, sent money to my family back home in Manila. And then we are in an economical crisis in Lebanon, and we're begging for our relatives to send us dollars, you know? So, there's this disparity, and I'm just connecting the dots. But I just also want to say, like, you know, especially right now, like it feels like a little Lebanese bash, but it's not, because in all honesty, the fact that I can have this conversation in Lebanon, you know, makes it more progressive about the situation than everywhere else. So let's not get it twisted. And that's also one of the that's also why the main reason I'm here in Lebanon is because even for someone like me, you know, I feel like I can succeed in this place, you know.
I mean, to me, you know, sorry if I'm wrong for saying this, but to me, you are Lebanese. I mean, I don't want to whitewash your background or deny your, you know, Filipino and Syrian background, but I feel like since you've held the scenes down so long, you've been there so long, what is a Lebanese person at the end of the, what do you end up, what ends up defining it at the end of the day, if you're representing a country and a culture in a positive way for so long, even if it's not in a positive way? I don't want to only say it has to be positive, but if you've been representing the country for so long, it's like, what is this? What is identity, I guess, you know? And many Lebanese themselves go through identity crisis, and we're not trying to bash Lebanon or Lebanese, but there is a whole identity with the Syria, the divisions, you know, we were one country, we divided, etc. You know, Lebanese nationalism is relatively new, if we want to, you know, discuss it. And it's like, do you feel like, exactly, we don't want to just bash, because I feel like at the same time you have been embraced to an extent as a Lebanese hip hop artist. You've done so much in Beirut. You founded the arena, you know, the battle rap scene out there, Scum Week. You've been part of Faria al-Atrash, you know, one of the, it's like the roots of Lebanon, if I could say, you know what I'm saying? You guys held it down for so long. So it's like, I you know, it's just, these conversations are interesting that we're having here. It's not about bashing. We're just trying to talk facts.
No, 100%. That's what I'm just saying. I'm not, me personally, I'm not trying to make it seem, especially the perception of it, you know, like that, oh, he's in our country and he's succeeding and he still don't like it. You know, it's not about that. It's not about me either. It's about how I see this environment. And it's definitely not all bad, because I'm here and I love it in Beirut. And maybe it's because I'm in this pocket of group of people that really accept me, and whoever, if I find that group that show me love, it's all for me, especially. And after all these years of like being away from home and away from my family, is my mind is always on my family and the loved ones around me, you know. And now that there's my name, you know, slowly getting out there, that's actually when I'm experiencing more unacceptance to me, you know. Like when I was little, you know, and you know, just a guy flipping coins in arena and, you know, calling time, that's all gravy. He's doing stuff for us, you know. But when it becomes like, oh, he's actually succeeding more than a lot of us, now there's eyes on me. And I remember one of the first interviews I had from Jadid magazine over here, and they asked me, "What do you think is the impact of, you being signed into Warner and in the Middle East, being the first artist?" And I remembered laughing and saying, if it would be, hopefully it would be taken positively and just be this great competitiveness of who could do better music and just succeed. But if it's according to how I see it, I feel there's going to be a little ruffle in the, in the leaves, because they're going to be like, why are these resources going to some guy that's not from here, And yeah.
Yeah, but you are from here, but whatever. But it's like this is a whole conversation we're having, I guess, right? But it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
because I know you've addressed that recently. You began some racist messages, or due to your new album. Do you think it's due to the success, due to you having this, like you said, this record deal now with Warner Music? You're a signed artist to a major label now. You're getting good promotion. And you have music videos out there. Do you think it's jealousy and hatred, which sometimes you can say is a good thing, because haters, that means you're doing something good, as they say, but at the same time it's not acceptable when it turns into racism, when they're attacking you?
Yeah, that's it. I don't mind, competitiveness. It's rap. I run a battle rap league, and also the guys who work with me have that understanding very well. Like, they come to the battle league, they face each other, just go at it lyrically, and it gets really bloody, man. They reference some really, really like backstory stuff, but at the end of the day, they slap hands, and they part ways, and the conversation that happens on the internet about what they've done just lives on, but they understand what happened. But when it comes to like actually some people, creating disses from afar, there's no connection, there's no conversation, there's no actual real back and forth, of there's no real beef. It's just like, we don't like this guy, bang. And I guess that's what happens, even in America. Like that's, and I guess now I'm just having an understanding of that, because this is the scene. We've finally got to a point where we have this large scene that we can call a hip hop scene in the Middle East. And I got to take my lumps, man.
Understood. Understood. I mean, it sounds like
I gotta take my lumps.
you were kind of saying, like, when you were kind of playing the background, they tolerated you, they accepted you, they didn't necessarily reject you. But now that you're as a rising star, even though you've been in the game for a minute, you didn't just started get a deal yesterday. You've been making music for years now and holding down the scene. So now that you have this deal and you're having this success, all of a sudden, we don't tolerate this anymore. Now you've gotten too big for our acceptance.
Yeah, I think it's always like, and that comes with, a rapper needs to have a certain amount of ego to just be that confident, braggadocious, being that a rapper needs to be, right? So I think in the mind state would be like, why him, not me? I think I'm better. And if it sticks to that, I'm always cool with that, man. I at some point when I was younger, I was the same thing. I see a rapper that I might not feel are the same caliber having success, and I'm like, why him, not me? Let me go on my pen and go at it, But when it comes to like, why him, not me? Fuck this, Asian dude, or fuck this Syrian dude. Exactly. Or that's when it becomes like, man, okay, cool. And I honestly,
that has nothing to do with it. Yeah, that has nothing to do with it. If you don't like Chyno because you don't like his bars, okay, that's fine. You don't like his music, his production, whatever it is. But if you don't like him all of a sudden because he's Syrian or Filipino, or whatever that becomes unacceptable. That becomes straight up racism.
Yeah, and it's easy to rally, people to, especially now. I think with what goes on in Lebanon, it's easy to rally into that.
I mean, let's talk about the origins a little bit now. When did you adopt the name Chyno? Was that always your hip hop name? Did you have different MC names before Chyno with the Y?
So I had a friend of mine named Maher Zidikli. Shout out to Maher Zidikli, by the way. When I moved to Damascus, he was from Texas. He's Syrian, living in Texas. He was staying in Damascus at that point. And when we met, he's like, a lot of Mexicans are in Texas. And when we see somebody Asian, we call them Chyno, because Chyno means Chinese. And I'm like, yo, that will never stick, bro. Like, why would you call me Chyno? I'm Filipino. I have nothing to do with China. And it's like, bro, too bad, you're Chyno. And it got stuck to me from like when I moved from Damascus to Beirut. And I was always like, why? Why would you call me Chyno? You know? And I guess that's why it became Chyno with a Y, because I always asked why. And
Nice. Okay.
and also because they always spelled my name wrong. They always added it with an I. So I was like, bro, it's Chyno with a Y, man. And those two things just came together. And I feel there's always this like undertone, you know, that the acceptance of being called that, you know, on itself is me saying, I want to take that name and make it my own, you
You
know?
kind of flipped it. You kind of flipped it,
Yeah,
even though
exactly.
people are using it as I say. I'm not sure if you doesn't look like your friend meant it mean-hearted, but
No, no, no.
other people may use it in a negative term, like Chino, you
Yeah.
know, the Asian dude or whatever, the Chinese dude, even though you're not Chinese, but you know, the stereotypes that people may have. But you kind of flipped the name, you kind of took it like, oh yeah, you're gonna call me Chino?
Yeah.
I want to be Chino
Yeah.
then.
Because
I'm
I
gonna,
always felt like it was like, you know, where we in the Middle East, if there was someone from Africa, he's either Sudani or Habashi. You know, that's like, he could be from Nigeria, he could be from Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal. He'd be like, yo, he's Habashi or Sudani. And that has like a racial undertone to it. And I felt like it was very similar to group us together, you know, by calling me Chyno or calling me in some Japanese or whatever, you know, like it's just the indication of it. And I understand there was an indication over there, but now we're evolving and we have this understanding. So I kind of added the Y to have a disclaimer of that, you know, that it's me really taking it to myself.
You know, it's very interesting you mentioning that, you know, because, you know, some people in our country or just people in general may lump up different cultures together, may lump up
Yeah.
Koreans, Japanese, Chinese as, you know, just call them all one thing. It happens in the United States all the time. You just lump up people or what's the dominant? You may just think all the group, whoever's the most dominant or famous, they all must be from that, you know, dominant nation. But it's like, you know, I've been through different, you know, ideological beliefs and stuff, you know, and I kind of went from Arab nationalism to Syrian nationalism, but part of me feels like I feel like, you know, Arabic speaking people in West Asia. So I'm trying to refuse to use the word Middle East anymore. I'm trying to use West Asia because I believe that the people in West Asia, we should identify with the Asian continent, and those Arabic speaking in North Africa should identify with the African continent instead of, you know, I know we're trying to build our unique, we're special Arabs, or it might be part of, you know, due to Islamic religion as well. We want to be unique and different and separate
Yeah.
ourselves. Why? I'm disappointed that we don't have that identification with Asia as much as we should.
Yeah, there's a big separation. I think, like once you start crossing the peninsula, you know, the languages start changing, and I think that's where identity starts, like, you know, being separated. I'm not really into, like, you know, because I'm, you know, mixed race. I agree with you. You know, I agree with you, but I'm more like fuck borders in general. You
I'm with
know,
you too.
so.
Yes, yes.
So at this point, I'm just like, yeah, if you want to be called altogether, feel like Arabs, that's cool. You know, if Africans want to have a, you know, unification of their identity as all Africans, they should do as well. But it doesn't mean, you know, that we should feel superior because we formed a conglomerate together. You know, that you can package yourself as a group of people and say, yeah, okay, because we're packaged together as one, now we're more superior than any other group. That's where it becomes a problem. And with how the world is shaping up right now, with globalization, you're just going to make more migrants. You know, resources are ever shifting from place to place, and with these resources come the technicians that know about these resources, and they're going to be moved with that. So there's going to be mix of cultures all the time now. You know, maybe the pandemic is slowing that down, but but I don't think that will stop with the internet going on as well.
What I'm trying to say is that, it's like, you know, you know, let's just throw it to sports. Sometimes sports unifies people. So we'll have, like, Lebanon hosted the Asia Cups at you know, not that long ago. I'm not sure, within the last 20 years or so. So it's like we're able to host the Asia Cups or participate in it, but then we still try to separate ourselves like we're different than the rest of Asia. And listen, there's different cultures, there's different, nationalities, religions, beliefs. So, but I feel like part of it is our tendency to try to be like we're superior or we're unique or we're special. And that's where it's
Yeah,
unfortunate, that's where it
it's very
becomes.
unfortunate. It's like this, man. I remember as a kid, and like a few years ago, like a decade or so ago, and watching like you know having Israel part of Miss Europe, as a and you're always like, how is that even a thing? Like I thought they're in the Middle East. That's
That
part of
says it
Asia,
all, though. That says
like
it all, right?
yeah. So you're just like, what is borders anyways, man? It's all politics.
Mm,
So I don't really adhere to it too much.
gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
uh, I've stopped. I stopped really going into politics and when it comes to identity. I
Mm,
always just say there's people I love, and I just try to localize things as much as possible, because when I start thinking of the greater picture, then I feel numb and I
mm,
feel paralyzed to do something. But
mm.
when I localize the situation to say, oh, these are loved ones around me and they're having hardships, that's when I can make albums like Mamluk. That's when I can make songs like Abid, and I can make songs like Fresh Money. But when I look at the greater picture, now I'm just talking generalizations that nobody can do anything about.
Understood. Makes you feel powerless. I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I like in your music is that you address these issues, but in a subtle way. Not like trying to beat people over the head with it.
Yeah.
It'll just be a bar, and and you take it
A
as
reference.
a reference.
A
Exactly.
reference. Yeah. Like
Um,
anything. And look, man, the catchiest way to like, get people to think about the situation is creating this awesome bar that they can re-recite and be like, yo, that's a good bar. And then they can reference that. I remember somebody from, some Syrian guy from Germany, like hit me up and said something like, oh, I like this bar, si senor, si senora, see me, you see money like you seen senora.
mm.
And he has to be, like, so if you're not from Lebanon and you don't know Lebanese politics, you
Exactly.
don't know who senora is. But
Exactly.
because you like the bar and that sounded good, and
For
why
those
senora?
watching, for those watching, he was a Lebanese prime minister.
Yeah.
Certain
And also,
class, money,
yeah,
a certain
everybody
party.
knows he got money,
Exactly, exactly. So I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but are you rapping more in Arabic now than in the past? When I first got to hear you as part of your group Fari Al Atrash, I felt you rap more in English. But now I feel like
No,
okay,
no, actually, that's not true. It would air, and when I was with Faril Atrash, literally, I think I only had one song in English with Faril
okay,
Atrash, and
okay,
then when I in 2015, this is I think when me and you were in more communication,
yeah, yeah.
I released my first solo album, making music to feel at home, and that's when I flipped completely into English again, and
Mm-hmm.
then and it's all because of you know the where I was at. When I started making music to feel at home, I was living in Barcelona. I had fled
Okay.
from Lebanon because the war in Syria happened, and my anchor to the Middle East, I felt, was tug, pull, or like at least cut off. So it felt like the ship has sailed for me to be in Lebanon, because the anchor of Syria, which was always this 2-hour drive for me to see my family, that
Mm-hmm.
was not there anymore, because my family had also flew to Philippines. I had the opportunity to go to Barcelona,
Okay.
and I moved there. So and
That's the album I'm
and
referencing. That's the album where I heard more of your English bars. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Post Fari Al Atrash, your first solo album. So I kind of like
exactly.
hearing you back spitting in Arabic. I know you spit in English too in the new album, but hearing you spit in Arabic, I'm like, I haven't heard Chyno spitting bars in Arabic in a minute.
In a
You're
minute.
just like I feel like you're more. I felt like you're more comfortable with it now. But I could be just from person, just as a fan listening.
Yeah, I think I also I found my voice in general as an artist. So I have a certain confidence already of myself. When I was younger, I was always getting corrected, for my Arabic, like grammar and stuff, and for me, I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I'm a migrant person from mixed background. My Arabic bound to be fucked up. So let me rap the way I would say it, regardless of the, and ain't nobody correcting anybody in America for the grammar. Why are they correcting me? You know, like, what is this privileged outlook that you have to be super educated and know everything to make music? That's not how it works.
Yeah, and you know, especially in Lebanon where people kind of speak a different type of Arabic and mix it with English and French, and you know, we
Yeah.
sometimes we get criticized for that, you know. So like, where our Arabic isn't strong enough, even though it is in some cases, but at the same time, because it's a country that has so much diversity in a way, and we travel so much, we also butcher the Arabic language ourselves, you know,
Yeah,
to an extent.
yeah,
To an extent.
we definitely do, man. And I think the biggest like take for me when it comes to that criticism of also why do you rap in English when you're from the Middle East? Uh, Recently, I had like an affirmation about it because a big thing I always, you know, the fact that I speak English so fluently, you know, is this disparity of cultural exchange that we have with the Western world. There is this huge disparity of cultural exchange. I absorb so much of your Western culture that I come here and sound like this. That is a problem, you know. So when we look at Anghami, which is a platform, you know, shout out to Anghami, I love their platform, but it's like our Spotify in the Middle East, you know. It is the platform that most Arabs use. And the largest following for a hip hop act is an American act, you know, with in which Drake has 3.2, 3.3 million followers, and the highest, you know, Arabic rapper, you know, with amounts of listenership and followers is only 10% of that, you know. So if we, as a country, as a region, consume more Western hip hop, why can't we, which is in English, why can't we also consume some English hip hop about our culture? And in the same time, we can export our culture, and maybe they'll look at us and say, hey, you know, they got something cool too, you know?
Exactly.
And hopefully, you know, Arabic will be, you know, spoken a lot more. We're because of our unique situation of being so fucked up that we have a lot of people all over the world. So maybe Arabic, you know, has a different implication globally. But till then, I want to have, you know, I don't want to have the limitations of being only from in this region. I'd like to get out and get everybody else to understand what's going on here.
You know, you did elevate the Arab hip hop scene by starting the arena, and for example, getting Mr. Disaster to come and rap and do battle. You know, he battled several times out there in Beirut, and he would battle in Arabic as well. So he kind of showed that, you know, Arab rap is dope as hell. You know, it doesn't always have to be in English. Obviously, English dominates, and that's part of the Western influence. And you know, they just dominate in all types of ways, militarily, culturally, you know, musically, whatever. So to have that, you started the arena. Why did you start it? What motivated you to start the arena and have these battle rappers, you know, underground in Beirut and other countries in the Middle East?
To be honest, it's just simply, I'm a huge fan of battle rap. I've been watching battle rap since like Scribble Jam. I remember a DJ Lethal Skills. Shout out Lethal Skills.
Yes, nice.
He had the Scribble Jams 2004 DVD, and then he invited me and my boy Zoog Matthew. Shout out Zoog. He invited me over. This is like in 2004, 2005. And
that's dope. I love these stories. I love these stories. Shout out Lethal Skills, man. I love when I hear like somebody brought this CD or brought this video.
Yeah, so
expose me to something.
DVD was Scribble Jams, and then he popped it in, and I'm like, okay. I saw Brother Ali doing like some freestyles also on the previous Scribble Jams, like in 2002. Brother Ali was in there. Idea, also Slug, you know, he was also battling then. Mers, you know, as well. So these are artists that I knew because of the underground scene. I had a friend from LA who used to bring a zip drive full of like, you know, music back to Damascus. So I got really into the LA scene a lot. So and all the underground scenes. So atmosphere, like, so when I watched Scribble Jams, I was like, oh, this is so cool. I know these people. And then I started watching the battles, and I'm like, wow, they're really going at it. Oh my God, they're relentless. And I just had this like, I have a huge like adoration. I adore anything called competition. You know, I played basketball when I was a kid. I played baseball. I was surrounded by sports. So because of that, I saw like this sports part of hip hop, you know, and focusing on it because you always had that, you know, the competitive nature of hip hop. You always had the beef since Tupac, Jay-Z, Nas. We
Yes,
that's
yes.
ingrained, and so they encapsulated that into an event. I kept watching. I was hooked. I started like watching WRC World Rap Championship with Immaculate, and you know, even Disaster was on that in 2006, 2007, 2009 Grind Time. I was just a huge fan, and I had met Disaster actually in 2011 before this whole thing popped off. He came to my
Okay.
house. I don't know what happened. A phone call from here, there.
Nice.
It was then he came over to my house. It was me and Zug. I was a huge fan from 2011. So he was at place. I'm like, yo, we know your battle here. You know, that. Fast forward 2015, Disaster was coming back to Beirut. Hasn't been here for years. And he contacted Eshikman. Eshikman,
Yes.
you know, they're like the graffiti artists.
Graffiti artist, yeah.
And they used to rap, now less, but they're also graffiti artists, and they have a clothing company, you know, really successful urban clothing company here in Beirut. So he got a call from Disaster saying that he wants to battle Ed Abbas, you know.
Who was part of your group for the
From my crew.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just came off OPP, my video clip, my first debut video clip, and then we were working on another video clip. So there was this understanding that Chyno has contacts to, you know, equipment, camera equipment. He has the contacts, and he also hosts a lot of stuff. Like me, I work with Red Bull, so I host a lot of their events. I work with different clubs as well. I host their nights. So they're like, Chyno can host and bring the equipment. Let's get it going. I obviously agreed because I'm a huge Disaster and Ed Abbas fan. So I'm like, this is gonna be fucking awesome.
Were you conflicted? Were you conflicted because your boy Ed Abbas, or you're like, you know, it's hip hop?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I wasn't conflicted. I was like, this is gonna be a cool battle. You know, I didn't know what each one's gonna bring to the table. I didn't know what Disaster was gonna do in Arabic. I had no clue. So I was like, awesome, man. Ed Abbas just dropped this track a few years before that called Ermid, and it was like on that, like, you know, heavy bars type of like song, and it was like wildfire spreading around the region, especially back then. So I'm like, yeah, he definitely has a chance. So I was just hosting and organizing it, and then from then on, me and my partner Joe Haj, who is my only partner in arena, and now we have Maggie, but like for years he was my only partner. We decided to make it more like an organization. So we made the graphics, we made all the teasers, and we made it official.
No doubt. It was yo, when I saw those battles, man. So he had that first battle with Ed Abbas in 2015. Then he came back and had another battle, right? A couple of years later, a year later or so.
Yeah, literally 2 years later, I think, or a year and a half after. But and that's, you know, big shout out to Disaster for those two battles, because that's him. You know, it's not, we had no money then. We had no name, so we couldn't secure any sponsors. He just literally came to Beirut, said, I want to battle Ed Abbas, who can bring the cameras, and then we made it happen.
So he
and
knew
then
Ed
the
Abbas
second
was up there. He knew he was a good challenger. Like he knew
yeah,
he's gonna target somebody who is on his level. If you know, who's holding down the scene. Yeah.
Or at least in his mind as close as his level it can be. You know, obviously he's been doing at it for a while. I don't know how he saw it, but a big shout out to Disaster, because those two battles was him just coming to me or coming to us and saying, I want to make a battle, and he knew that would start something. You know,
y'all did it by those steps. Where are those steps where y'all did the first battle?
It's in Mamluk. You know, Mamluk. It's changed a bit now. It's not as rugged and raw because there's like a big center that was open next to it, but it's still there. And but that place is a bit dead right now because it's literally 400 meters from the blast.
That's what I want to ask you. Were you in Beirut when the blast happened? You know, in August of last year. Where were you when this happened? This tragedy.
I was home right here. I had moved 2 weeks before the blast. I was closer to the blast.
Wow.
And then,
Wow.
but I'm
Okay.
not too far. I'm not too far. Like our neighbors over here, their windows blown out. Almost all of them. Me and my fiance got lucky because we left all the windows open.
Okay.
So all the windows were open. So when the blast came through, we just got shot into the bathroom, because there was this weird situation where I got a message from a friend saying, "Do you hear rumblings?" I think it's planes. So I heard rumblings, and I told my fiance, "Get up a second. It might be jets, fighter jets. Let's just be attentive." And then when the rumbling got really loud, because it started getting louder and louder, she came closer towards me. The blast happened, went through the house, and then pushed us into the bathroom.
Wow.
The funniest story about, actually, that, not funny, is
No, I figure of speech. I get you. Yeah.
Was on that on the 15 minutes before. So the blast happened at 6:07 p.m. I get a call from my friend at 5:50 p.m. Zug lives also 400 meters or 500 meters from the blast. He calls me and Ross. We've been hanging out in the lockdown, playing PS, FIFA and NBA 2K. So he's like, "Just come over, man." And we were working on the song 2020 Vision. So he's like, "Come over, let's go to the house and let's hang out." That's 17 minutes before the blast. So I'm brushing my teeth, the blast happens. If we were at the blast, if we were at Zug's house, we would all probably be gone, because his house is completely totaled. He was on the 11th floor with nothing in front of him.
How is he doing?
He wasn't at home as well. He was coming back from work. Wow.
It's crazy. And just a few minutes can change your whole life.
So much of us, so much of us. And the weird thing about this whole situation and 2020 Vision as a song and video was that when we were writing the song 2020 Vision, we were done with it by June, July. And I wanted to reflect on my year, on my experiences with Lebanon that year, and how I saw discrimination happening. And then Ross was talking about the protests, because he was down in the protests a lot. I was also, but Ross was militantly in the protests all the time. So he wanted to wrap up, summarize his 2020 while I summarized my 2020. So when we were done with the song, we didn't address the bomb explosion. And so after the blast happened, I came up with the concept of the video clip. And while I was scouting, because we wanted to address, because we couldn't address it in the song, we wanted to address it in the video clip. And while I was scouting for the location, I was on the 11th floor of this building, and I was taking pictures on my stories. And then a friend of mine, shout out Nairi Yakubian, she hits my story up, and she's like, "Are you in my building?" And that building is completely totaled. That building is like 300, 200 meters from the blast, so super close.
Wow.
So she was like, "Is that my building?" I'm like, "I think it is, actually." And she's like, "What floor are you on?" And I was like, the 11th floor. And she's like, "My husband died on that floor." So I completely said, "I'm so sorry." I asked her if I can call her. She says, "Okay." And then I started explaining the video clip. I was telling her me, Mazen, Ross, and Zug, Matthew, we're from this area, like we're neighbors. And we wanted to show in the video clip that we're coming out of the destruction, trying to go somewhere spiritual, Harisa, to look over and try to reflect on what happened. And usually when you go, you have this assumption that something spiritual is going to hit you, but really it's just normal, boring ass reflection of what happened, but when I explained it to her, she was like, "My husband's favorite place in Lebanon is Harissa."
Wow. For those who don't know, that's where there's huge statue of the Virgin Mary. I used to go there in school trips as a kid. I've been there mad times. I used to love going there on school trips. But yes, okay, continue. So that was his favorite place.
Yeah, so he, and that's why when you see in the end of the video clip, I dedicated to my man Hussein Sharafuddin, preacher man, because and Shant is Nairi Yakubian's husband.
Who passed away in the blast, yeah.
Right. Yeah, rest in peace, and
Rest in
to
peace. Allah
Sean, and
yarhamu.
rest in peace, Preacher Man, because Preacher
Allah
Man
yarhamu.
also lived very, very, very close to the blast. And when the blast happened, his house was completely totaled. And I felt like was such a terrible year was happening to all of us, and especially him on a personal level. And that blast happening to him and moving back from Dubai and Canada and the economy going bad, I think that was like the stone, like the, you know, the the stick that broke the camel's back, sort of, you know, in terms of how he was absorbing all these tragedies around him. You know, Preacher Man, rest in peace, has been like such a lovely soul to us in the scene. And just also my person, apart from the scene, I never saw him as a scene because he was my friend for 18 years, you know.
That was your
So
boy
to
right there. That was your boy. I didn't want to bring up Double A the Preacher Man. You know, Allah yarhamu, dope Lebanese MC, who along with you also represented the Lebanon hip hop scene, and you have him on your new album just by himself, correct? That's just a song.
yeah,
You let him shine on it. Why is it just, you know, Double A the Preacher Man by himself? Why didn't you jump on the track? Is there a specific reason?
exactly like you said, man. I wanted him to just shine on it, you know. And we created that song as me and Zug during his memorial. We went in to his burial, and because of the COVID situation, not a lot of his loved ones could be in the burial, and that kind of happened so quick. And so me and some friends decided to make a memorial for him, and you know, with the mural, the graffiti piece, and you know, some candles, and we had people talk about him. So I told Zug, I'm like, I still have some vocals for him in my computer for a project that I don't really know what happened to it, but I'll ask permission to use that vocals because I've never heard it. And I think that verse is literally one of his best verses, you know?
It's beautiful,
So
man. It's a
yeah,
dope song. Yeah. You know, Double it's like when I said tuned in, I know he had the radio show, you had the radio show, we had the radio show, Existence to Resist,
yeah,
Arabic,
exactly.
then used to be Bar Fight You after us, then Double A the Preacher Man used to take over. And that dude would rap freestyle for hours. Like,
Bro.
I used to tune in, like, yo, what, catch your breath. Like, he's going on, and he could freestyle for mad long over any beats, you know, a live band.
Yeah,
Didn't matter, you know. He's such a good, you know, I didn't know him too good, just online communication, you know, a little bit.
yeah.
But he was always such a good dude and humble to us and supported us. And it was just, to hear his passing away was just
Oof, yeah.
very
It was
sad.
heavy.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for
Yeah,
giving me this moment to, you know, shout him out to the peeps, man.
we have to,
I hope.
we have to, you know, shout out those who have let us hold our head, you know, up high in pride. You know what I'm saying? So we always got to give our respect, and you know, Allah yarhamu. That's a, you know, that's, and I'm happy you
Yeah,
put
man.
him on the album, and you know, he gets to shine through the Mamluk album. You know, we're gonna wrap it up very soon, but you know, in regards to the Mamluk, this is your first major label deal. How did this happen? I mean, from my understanding, you wasn't necessarily seeking it. It just kind of, you stumbled
Kind
on
of
it.
happened,
How
man.
did this happen, man?
You know, like for everybody like doing hip hop music, I feel like, especially if you're independent, you need to have an understanding that your money is not gonna fully come from, you know, your streaming and things like that. So I do a lot of other things in the hip hop community, in the hip hop world over here, that helps to generate some income. Uh, so I was doing a festival here called Beirut Scum Week, which stands for Beirut Street Culture and Urban Music Week. We decided that us as the hip hop scene never really got we never got love from festivals around here in
Crazy
the region.
acronym. It's a crazy acronym.
Yeah. So so I remember, like, I was like, that's a glove, bro. That's a glove. You know, that shit fit.
Scum Week, yeah.
So we said like, because we get treated like scum by a lot of like the festivals, so we're gonna make our own festival. And I was in communication with Warner because they were interested, and I was working with them on this festival, and I was in communication with them because I used to be Synaptic's manager. So I was trying to get Synaptic signed first, you know, not first, but actually I was that was what I was trying to do, is get Synaptic signed to a major deal. And that would be a success story for me, you know, as a manager. And when we finished Scum Week, a few months later, I realized that Synaptic was moving to Ramallah, and therefore I couldn't be his manager. The distance, I wasn't managing him anymore, and I was still working with, you know, in communication with Warner, and they kept on asking me, "Are you working on any music?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually, I got this album called Mamluk I've been working on," and they're like, "All right, can you?" And so they're like, I started like hitting them with breadcrumbs. And to be honest, I was actually in negotiation with them since March of last year. So it until
Wow.
we announced it around, you know, end of September or September, but we were in communication since March. Like, so I was going back and forth between my manager and my lawyer, and by the time my one of the final contracts that I got was 3 hours after the blast.
That's crazy, man. Yo, this is like a unique, it's like a Lebanese, you know, Syrian story. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
this is circumstances. I'm saying it's like,
I'm telling you, man. And then we were going back and forth for so much, dude, that after the blast, I remember talking to my former manager, Daphne, who's in France, but because of COVID, we kind of like, you know, restructured how we work together. I remember telling Daphne, I'm like, Daphne, I don't want to go back and forth about this too much. I want something real right now. I want something real to look forward to. Economical crisis, COVID, now this blast. I remember I'm like, I just want something solid now for me to look forward to, regardless if the numbers aren't adding up the way I want them to. Like, I don't care anymore.
so how many songs? So it sounds like you had the vision of Mamluk before the record deal, before signing to the label. How many songs were pre, you know, signing with Warner Music, and how many were post September?
Okay, so most of the songs, almost all the songs were like Russian Roulette. I shot in Philippines on August 2019,
That's dope.
October
That's dope that you took it
2019.
back. That's dope that you took it back home to the Philippines and shot a video out there.
And that
That's
was even before, like, you know, the crisis and everything. So I had that video in the vault, you know, and a lot of these videos, like Hey Funi and Russian Roulette, were even before I was in communication with Warner about the deal. The only song, an Anti-Hero with Synaptic, was actually recorded in Iceland on May 2019.
Okay.
So the only songs I think that came after the deal was most of the songs that I did with like not even after the deal, when we were already in communication, you know, like when we're like, okay, there's a possibility I might be with Warner. Let me make the songs a little bit more, some of them to be a little bit more mainstream, or like at least palatable to the mainstream crowd. And that's where, when we started getting Fresh Money, Nike Air, and what else? A prayer hand emoji. And obviously, after Double A, the Preacher Man passed away, his song.
That's dope, man. I mean, the project is amazing. I've been listening to it, you know, for
Thank
weeks
you, man.
before this interview, and every single video you've been dropping is fire. And I'm just happy to see you, happy to see you shining, my brother. Well deserved. You know what I'm saying? And I know what is the difference between being independent previously and now being signed to a major? This is the debate always going on in hip hop. Is there a big difference? Are you in a better place right now? I mean, obviously you're signed right now, so you got to say good things.
Yeah.
But just speaking realistically, what's the difference between an independent and a major?
The biggest thing for me, and I was talking to Synaptic about this not long ago, was that when I'm independent, there's all these conversations of what I should do and how my art should be that I have with myself. That's sometimes you feel closed in with your own ideas. When you have a label, you have a whole group of people taking you seriously, and I think that's quite motivating for me as an artist. You know, like all my old projects was me really in this pressure cooker of a studio or home studio, trying to pump out this music, and then not knowing, you know, what the narrative should be like, or, you know. But with Warner, it's this huge discussion of my art and putting importance to it. So in terms of artistically, you know, it really gave a lot of confidence, you know, in what I do, a bit of a validation as well. But I'm a person who's also worked independently and in the industry alone for a long time. So I'm not disillusioned by what a label can get me. I'm not out on the label asking for $100,000 video clips because I know I can't pay that back right now, you know? So I'm just a bit like, you know, savvy and careful, business savvy and careful. But I just want to have another place to go to, really.
That's beautiful, man. Inshallah khair, man. Mabruk. Congratulations on the
Thank you,
new
my guy.
album. It's so dope. Any, you know, where can people check you out online? What's the best places for people to hit you up for a feature or just want to, you know, link up with you or talk to you? Where's the best places?
Yeah. Man, IG is, I think, place I'm most active in. So Chyno with a Y on IG. And if you want to bump the music, man, the full lyric videos are on YouTube. Every song has a lyric video. And if not, you can go on any other platform that you would like, you know. So Spotify, Adghami, Deezer, Apple Music, they're all there.
Dope, man. Mamluk out now. Everybody check it out. Again, Chyno, thank you for being on the show. Appreciate you, my brother.
And also, before I go, my man John from Freel Atrash sends big love to you.
Love my brother Ahmed.
He loves you, bro.
He's like, you're the only one who calls me Ahmed. So you know, I love John Ahmed. That's my brother right there. Tell him to come back to Brooklyn. Tell him to come back to Brooklyn so we can have some booze.
He wants to, bro.
You too, Chyno. We got to see you in New York, Chyno, inshallah.
Man, I want to come back. I want to come to the Mecca, you know. So that's something I'm really looking forward to, man. Hopefully.
Dope, my
man,
brother.
Pleasure.
Thank
really
you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Chyno. Appreciate you, my brother. Talk to you later, okay? Peace, y'all.
Sure.
Peace.